Okay, in this video, we're going to look at functions with word problems. Okay, looking at number 12, the number of subscribers in thousands to a certain newsletter since the year 2000 is given by the function s of t equals 4.85t plus 11. So really the only new thing here is using s of t function notation rather than just saying like s equals. Okay, we're using s of t. Okay, so part A, sketch a graph of the situation. Okay, so when I ask you to sketch a graph of a situation and there's no grid given, so you don't just scale the axes or actually plot points. Okay, so this should just be a quick question. Recognizing this is like y equals mx plus b. Okay, so you need to recognize that first. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, that's a linear form. Okay, so it looks like a line. What we know about that line, the slope is 4.85 and the y-intercept is 11. So a sketch of the graph, the y-intercept will be at 11 and then increases by 4.85, 1,000 subscribers per year. So you're going to have a graph with a positive slope, or a line with a positive slope. Okay, so a sketch of the graph, you're going to start rather low. Okay, so because we know the positive slope, we're going to start down lower, okay, at 11, and then just a positive slope we're going to draw upwards. Okay, so the line increases. Okay, just label your axes as the number of years since 2000. Okay, and t, that's your input variable instead of x. Instead of y, we have s of t, and then we have the number of subscribers in thousands going up the side. I just labeled the 11 to show that's the y-intercept, and again, increasing line, okay, because you have 4.85, a positive slope. Okay, so that's all you need to see. Also, that's all you need to put for the sketch. The reason for doing a sketch is just to get an idea of what's happening in the situation, okay, and what it looks like. So as time goes on, the number of subscribers is going up. Okay, to explain the meaning of the coefficients of the 4.85 and the 11 in the equation, well, we already mentioned, like y equals mx plus b. So the slope is 4.85. Now that does not explain the meaning of it. Okay, that tells you we have a slope of 4.85, but what does that mean in the context of the question? Okay, so that means that something was increasing by 4.85. Well, if we were to look at the question, the number of subscribers in thousands is given by this function. So when we look at slope as rise over run, so when you look at rise over run, okay, when you go up and to the right, when you go up, that's changing the number of subscribers in thousands. When you go to the right, that's the number of years. So the 4.85 over 1 means that the y value goes up by 4.85. So the number of subscribers increases by 4.85 thousand per year. Okay, the 11, that's your y-intercept. But again, that doesn't explain what it means in the context of the question. Okay, so 11, that occurs when the input is 0. Okay, remember the y-intercept always occurs when the input is 0. Okay, which means in the year 2000, there were 11,000 subscribers. Okay, so moving on from that, find s of 20 and explain its meaning. So s of 20, well, our function is s of t, so that's telling you that the t value is 20. So everywhere you see a t, you're going to put a 20. So you do 4.85 times 20 plus 11. Okay, and when you do that evaluation, you end up with 108. So s of 20 equals 108, which means 20 years past 2000. So in the year 2020, we predict or expect 108,000 subscribers. Part D, find t when s of t is 25. Well, now they're not telling you that the t is 25 because 25 is not in parentheses. Now 25 is like the y value, or the number of subscribers, is 25,000. Okay, so now we're solving the equation 4.85t plus 11 equals 25. We are not putting 25 in place of t. Because remember, this is like y equals 25. Okay, so y equals, okay, that's your output value, the number of subscribers. So solving that by subtracting 11 and then divide by 4.85, okay, and we end up with about 2.8, okay, which would mean after about 2.8 years, so in 2002 or 2003, the number of subscribers would be predicted to be about 25,000. Okay, again, when you look at that, there's nothing new there other than using this function notation. Okay, getting used to using that in a word problem. Okay, number 13. The number of unruly airline passengers per year decreased approximately linearly from 279 passengers in 2003 to 141 passengers in 2007. When they say linearly, that tells you we're looking at a y equals mx plus b equation. Find a model, or find an equation to model u of t, the number of unruly airline passengers. Be sure to define your variables. Okay, so the two things that are changing is the year and the number of passengers. Okay, so your two variables, you can define these in different ways, but my suggestion is generally when you define your own variable, if you take the earliest year they give you, 2003, let's just say t, or x, is the number of years since that earliest year of 2003. Okay, so let t be the year since 2003. And then u of t, or y, will be the number of unruly passengers. So if you were to look at these on an axis, okay, if you were to graph these ordered pairs, well, from 279 in 2003, so that would be a t-value of 3, I'm sorry, a t-value of 0, and u of t, or y value of 279. Okay, and then the other one, okay, so 0, 279. Then the other one would be 4, because 2007 is 4 years since 2003, comma 141. Okay, so that's what the points would look like if you were to plot them, based on how we defined our variables. Okay, now we need to write an equation, basically of the line that goes through these 2 points. So now if we're looking at the line that goes through those 2 points, if I draw a line through there, we start with y equals mx plus b, and the first thing you need to find is the slope. To find the slope between these 2 points, remember you do the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so you do that. Okay, and again, if you need to pause the video and try this or slow it down, okay, feel free to. Okay, I'm just trying to save time here on the video. Okay, so you end up with a slope of negative 138 over 4, which means over the 4-year span, the number of unruly passengers decreased by 138, or you can look at it as the number of unruly passengers decreased by 34.5 unruly passengers per every 1 year. So now we know in our equation, we know that u of t equals 34.5 times t plus b. Okay, so you're going to put your slope in place of the m for mt plus b. Okay, now you're going to take one of those points, recognizing that those points lie on this line. Okay, so this line contains these 2 points, and this equation is supposed to represent that line. So that means that these 2 points should be solutions to this equation. All that means is if you plug in the points for x and y, you should get a correct answer. So I use the point 0, 279. So the y value, u of t, equals 279. The t, or x, value is 0. And notice what happens. Negative 34.5 times 0 is 0. So b is 279, which means your equation is u of t equals negative 34.5 times t plus 279. Okay, so that's how you write the equation using function notation. And again, you've been asked stuff like this before. Basically, write the equation of a line through 2 points. So once you recognize these are the 2 points, you can write the equation by using like y equals mx plus b, that basic idea, y equals mx plus b, finding the slope between the points, and then putting that slope into y equals mx plus b, and then substituting one of your points into that equation. You'd get the same answer if you used the points 4 and 141. So if you said 141 equals negative 34.5 times 4 plus b, you would still get 279 for the answer for the y-intercept. Okay, then the last question. Okay, number 14. A person's salary is a linear function of the number of years they work. The following table gives a salary asked in thousands of dollars after T years. Okay, so a few things to note here. It just says after T years. So they're not saying T is the year since 2000 or 2010 or anything like that. Okay, so a T value of 0 would just represent their initial or starting salary. The 3, 42.5, would mean after 3 years, their salary was $42.5 thousand. After 7 years, their salary is $56.1 thousand. So essentially, I'm just giving you 2 ordered pairs. I'm giving you the ordered pairs 3, 42.5, and 7, 56.1. Okay, so you're given those 2 points. Okay, so I would suggest, rather than me just talking through all this, that you actually take a minute and try this. So pause the video and try it. In part A, they tell you to find the slope. You should be able to do that. You're given 2 points. You can find the slope. Try to explain what it means. The s-intercept is basically saying find the b value. Okay, so what is the y-intercept? And then part C, D, and E are just using function notation and answering questions based on their function notation. Okay, so again, my suggestion is you try it, pause the video, and I will put the answers up so you can see the answers. Okay, so finding the slope, you do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, and you should get about 3.4. So that means their salary increases by $3.4 thousand per year. And I just did a little sketch of a graph here. You don't have to do that. I just did a little sketch just so we could see what's going on. If the t value was 3, we had 42.5. If the t value is 7, we're up at 56.2. Notice we have a positive slope there. So the rise over run, you went up 13.6 and to the right 4, or up 3.4 every year, okay, to the right one. Part B, the s-intercept, well, that's the idea of finding the b value. We know the slope is 3.4, so we use the slope. Okay, we put 3.4 in for m, and then we use a t and an s value that we know is true. Well, I just used 3 and 42.5. You could have used 7 and 56.1. You would get the same answer either way. When you solve that, you get 32.3. Okay, so the s-intercept is 0, 32.3, and that means their starting salary or initial salary was $32.3 thousand. In part C, just using function notation instead of s equals, we're going to use function notation s of t. Okay, so we have 3.4t plus 32.3. And then s of 4 in part D. Okay, we have s of 4, remember our function is s of t. So the t value is 4, which means everywhere you see a t in your equation, you're going to put a 4. So 3.4 times 4 plus 32.3. So s of 4 equals 45.9, which means after 4 years, their salary was $45.9 thousand. One thing I will point out is that some students will write down here, they'll say s of t equals 45.9. Okay, that is wrong. Okay, because we know that to get 45.9, the t value had to be 4. S of t is this over here, is this function, 3.4t plus 32.3. Once you substitute the number in there, it's no longer S of t, it's S of the number. Okay, so writing it this way will be wrong. Okay, this is the correct way to write it up here. Okay, then the last one, part E. Now we're saying S of t is 69.7. It's not saying that the t value is 69.7. It's saying that the S, or the y value, equals 69.7. So they're saying the salary is $69.7 thousand. Okay, so this is the equation we solve. And when you solve that by subtracting 32.3, then dividing by 3.4, you get t equals 11. Okay, so what that means is we would expect their salary to be $69.7 thousand after 11 years. Okay, so that's looking at a few word problems using function notation.